What's up, good peoples? All right, let's talk about cannabis. For some reason, I stumbled across like a cannabis video, a rare cannabis track, and I was listening to it, and I'm just being like, "Yo, I was supposed to do a cannabis video. Somebody had been asking me about this, so let's talk about it." Listen, when cannabis came out, he was a fucking problem. All right, let me go back and think. The first time I heard cannabis, remember I said like, I've been listening to hip hop. I grew up in it, but 97 was the year for me. That was the year when I was 13 at the time, and I was like, okay, I'm really going to like listen to this fucking genre. I love this entire shit, and I'm going to really like, listen to it all the time. You know what I mean? Type of thing. So the first time I heard cannabis was on 4321, right? LL, I was a big LL fan at the time, so I'm listening to 4321, and there's this guy who I've never heard of who's like, beating niggas to death and beating dead niggas to life. When you look at me long enough, I start to read your thoughts. If the single's strong enough, then I call you bluff, like, yo, how many rhymes you got? I can go for more millenniums than Mazda's got on the car lot. And I was like, who the fuck is this? I was blown away. I mean, I played it to my brother, who was like my younger brother, and we were just blown away. Like, this motherfucker is crazy. So then there's a couple more tracks that, come out. Like, I remember when he did 100 Bars. 100 Bars was the shit. Oh my God. I had 100 Bars. Then, even like How We Roll. Like, those were my joints. I'd listen to them all the time and, just bug out at how crazy, like, the rhymes were, right? But then cannabis started, for whatever reason, he lost me. And he lost me fairly early. I always say that, like, Mos Def is one of the biggest disappointments in rap history. But cannabis has got to be up there, too, okay? And I say this again, no disrespect to cannabis, because at least cannabis, in his short, or not so much short, but at least in that little time frame, in like 97 and 98, he at least contributed to this hip hop shit, right? So, sometimes when we talk about these people, it's not to make light of their contribution in rap, because for a minute, cannabis was a fucking problem, okay? He really was. But he started to lose me, man. I mean, I was like listening to some of those albums in the time period. I think it was like Rip to Jack and shit like that, and it was cool, but it wasn't like, it didn't give me that, you know what I'm saying, that feeling like when I first heard this shit. And I think there's a couple of reasons for this shit. First and foremost, I think obviously the beat selection fell off, and cannabis was never great with the beat selection shit, okay? But he rhymed on some good shit. Like, he rhymed on some decent beats for the time, which is obviously what got him noticed. But when it came down to making his own material and his own albums, it was just littered with whack beats, right? And like I said, as much as people talk all that lyricism stuff because they're pretending to be hip-hop heads, the reality is that without a good beat, you are dead in the fucking water. Nobody cares what you have to say if the beat is trash. This is fucking hip-hop fundamentals. Okay, so when people's just talking about, oh, bars, people don't care about bars no more, blah blah. People never cared about bars. Stop lying. Okay, like, they care about bars, but the fact of the matter is that once we hear a dope beat, then we're like, okay, what do you have to say? What are your bars? But without a dope beat, nobody gives a fuck. Remember, I just talked about Shine when he was going at Kendrick Lamar, and and Shine said the exact same shit. Okay? I didn't get it from Shine or whatever. I'm not copying what Shine said to tell you. Like, this is just obvious shit. You know what I mean? Shine is a hip-hop artist. He lived in New York. Like, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, if your beats are whack, nobody's listening. And Cannabis is a perfect fucking example. Because lyrically, he was still putting it down on paper. Like, if you look at those rhymes from Rip to Jacka, when he had those tracks, Cannabis and shit like that, and, Eclatibus and whatever, you know what I mean? Lyrically, them shits is on point, but the fucking beats is trash, and his flow changed. And nobody got time for that. I mean, that's underground nerd shit. Like, it goes into that backpacker, thing. And, like, sure, there's a couple of people that can tolerate that shit, but most people in general, especially even hip hop fanatics like myself, ain't listening to that. And that was the problem with Canibus. It wasn't just the beats, but his flow started to change. Like his vocals were starting to like just become really like, you know, it didn't sound as nice. Do you know what I mean? It almost became, it's like he got angrier almost as time got on in terms of his raps, but it just didn't have that sort of finesse and fun. Because the thing with Canibus is that when you're saying some shit like, you know, Canibus speaks of frequencies that dogs have trouble hearing and shit like that. when you're spitting that intellectual space shit, okay, you gotta keep it fun, right? Because hip hop at the end of the day is about fun. So you gotta have that like and delivery to charisma, that makes people go, oh yeah, that's cool. You know what I mean? And I think that charisma started to dwindle in Canibus' subsequent projects. So that's kind of the unfortunate part. But was Canibus that nigga at a particular point in time? Oh, absolutely. We really thought he was going to take over this rap shit. I remember thinking that personally. I remember being like, yo, this dude is a problem. So it's interesting when he started to battle Eminem and shit like that. And I remember all these Eminem stands were like, oh, Eminem destroyed him and all that kind of shit. And, and it almost was like that battle with Canibus put Eminem on a pedestal because it was like, if Eminem can eat Canibus, then, Eminem is obviously a GOAT. Weird, funny shit like that, man. And it's like, look, listen, let's be honest here. Eminem is not on Canibus's level, okay? Let's just make that fucking clear, okay? Rap for rap, Canibus in his prime is better than Eminem in his prime. Let's just keep it a fucking buck, right? Song for song, Canibus got better songs than Eminem. Let's keep it, again, another buck. Now, does Eminem have more of a celebrated, pop discography? Of course. But if I was to sit here and tell you, okay, song for song, let me talk about hip-hop shit, right? Remember, I made a video about Eminem's best sort of hip-hop material, like the shit that, people could play. And if I was to compare that to Canibus' shit, like the stuff I'm going to link below, Canibus would wash him. Now, yeah, Canibus would wash him, actually. If they were to do a versus together, I'm pretty sure Canibus would win him. You know what I mean? Or at least it'd be closer than you guys would think. And that's my point. Like, there's certain people in this rap shit that nobody talks about, but, you know what I mean, have contributed a lot or were a fucking problem at one point, right? So anyways, I'll link some stuff below. I think that Canibus obviously, was the prototype for an MC at the time, and it was really thrilling to see him come out, but unfortunately he never really delivered a classic album or even a bunch of classic songs. I would say, like, he has some classic songs, but nothing that, like, album-wise that you're like, oh man, he really delivered it, on his full potential. So it is what it is, man. But if you're a Canibus fan, let me know what you think. I've only got like a couple of songs of his that I would ever play, to be honest with you. But some of them shits, man, like, even if I haven't heard them in years, they'll always be burned in my mind because of just how dope they are. And I always say this about, if you're a lyricist and you don't have quotables, you don't have those lines that burn in people's, brains, you're not saying nothing, right? You can rap fast and all that shit. You can fool the casual, but, you know what I mean? You just go on, as Jerry would say, you're rattling on and ain't saying nothing. You know what I mean? Like, we know the cats that say some shit, it gets stored in here instantly, man. That 4-3-2-1 line that I quoted to you, I haven't heard 4-3-2-1 in years, right? But there's just certain shit that you just like, yo. Lastly, I was going to say, actually, on that note, I remember, shout out, to one of my boys from way, way back in the day, my college days. This is like almost 2 decades ago now. But I remember he used to love how we roll. Like, he was a West Indian cat. And he was like, we roll with the wildest niggas, West Indian island niggas, unemployed, jobless niggas, the foulest niggas, who never smile at niggas, some hostile, violent, chemically imbalanced niggas. That was his shit. And he was the one that really put me back on to how we roll. Because, I liked it at the time. But this is like a couple of years after. And he was just like, yo, this is my joint. So, yeah, man, these are songs that meant a lot to us, man. Like, we grew up in this hip-hop shit. And that's why I kind of try to share my opinion, because I kind of caught it on the tail end. Hip-hop by 97 was really turning into pop already to a certain extent. But there was still realness, and there was still that feeling like when someone would come in that was fresh, then you could feel it. You know what I mean? And I was able to grab onto some of that shit. So, yeah. I'm going to talk to you about Jay in a second, actually. I think I'm going to upload 2 videos. So, let's end this one here, and Jay coming up.